Hey guys, what's up? It's Alyssa, and today I'm going to share with you a list of 25 tricks to remember things you'll need to know to pass your real estate exam. These are things I picked up from Prep Agent and from the Prep Agent Facebook page, and also a few that I made up myself. So for each term, I'll give you the definition of it and then a trick to help you remember it, and I guarantee you'll pick up at least one that you've never heard of before. So here we go with 25 terms in about 12 minutes. So a takeout loan is a long-term financing loan used after construction is completed. So it's needed after the interim / short-term / construction loan. So the way I remember this one is takeout. When you order takeout, it takes a long time to be delivered. So a takeout loan is your long-term loan. Next is a net lease. This is a lease requiring the tenant to pay not only rent, but also taxes, insurance, maintenance, etc. It's the opposite of a gross lease where the landlord pays for the major expenses. So for a net lease, I picture a net scooping up all the additional costs that you have to pay. And net lease is also in my top 10 acronyms video if you want to check that out. That will further help you remember what they're talking about when you see a question with taxes, maintenance, and insurance. Next is a hip roof. This is a type of roof where all sides slope downward towards the walls. So picture someone wearing a skirt around their hips and it falls down on all sides. So it's definitely easier to visualize this if you see a picture of a hip roof. So I will link that below. And then we have a gable roof. A gable roof consists of two roof sections sloping down in opposite directions. So picture a rectangular folding table, something like a plastic beer pong table, and think table gable. So when you fold it in half, it has two sides sloping in opposite directions. And this one was actually on my test, so this trick was super helpful for me. And I've heard that as far as roof types go, hip and gable are the ones that are most likely to appear on the test. And for this one, I'll also include a link below to show you what a gable roof looks like, just so you're clear. Fee simple defeasible. When an ownership is dependent upon a certain condition, as in it must be used as a public space or you cannot serve alcohol on it, that is a fee simple defeasible. If a condition is violated, the estate may revert back to the grantor. So I think of this one as the grantor could defee you and take back the property. For some bonus information on fee simple defeasible, this type of ownership is also broken out into two categories: fee simple determinable and fee simple condition subsequent. So if you hear those two words, they're still talking about defeasible estates. Next, we have commingling. This is putting client money and personal money in the same account. So commingling, just think of mingling or mixing together in the same account. This also showed up on my test, and I think it's important to note, specifically for California, you are allowed to have a maximum of $200 of broker money in the trust account to cover any banking fees. You are also allowed to keep commission payments in the trust account for up to 25 days. So remember those two, those answers were both on my test. Conversion, that's the using or misappropriating client money. So think conversion, converted. You have converted the client money to personal money by using it for purposes other than what it's meant for. Chattel. So this is movable personal property, just a fancy word for personal property. So when you see chattel, think of cattle. Cattle moves, so movable. So when you see chattel, cattle, movable, personal property is movable. That's a silly one from Prep Agent, but it will definitely help you remember. So this is a California one. The baseline and Meridian intersections, the three that are in California are Humboldt, Mount Diablo, and San Bernardino. So you can remember this as high, middle, and south. So the highest is Humboldt, the middle is Mount Diablo, and the southernmost one is San Bernardino. Next we have the selling agent. So this is sometimes confusing, but the selling agent is the one representing the buyer. It's the opposite of the listing agent who represents the seller. So the selling agent or selling firm is responsible for selling the house to the buyer, technically, right? Because they brought the buyer. Redlining. Redlining is the illegal practice of lenders denying a loan or charging more for housing in a certain area, which is considered more risky. So for this one, I picture a lender drawing red circles around the areas that they don't want to lend to. So for me, when I think of lenders or loan officers, I think of accounting and red pens. So I just picture a lender sitting there with their map and just drawing red circles where they aren't going to make loans. Estoppel, the principle which prevents a person from asserting something contrary to what is implied by a previous action. So this one, it sounds more complicated than it really is, but really estoppel, just think of stop. It stops you from acting one way and saying something opposite to that. Ownership in severalty. Ownership of real property by one person only, also called sole ownership. So initially when you look at ownership in severalty, you think of several, but from now on, when you see that word, think of sever. So when you own it in severalty, you've severed all other parties and you alone own that property. Estate at will. This is a lease that can be terminated by either party at will without notice. So when you see estate at will, think I can and I will end this lease whenever I want to. And that goes for the landlord or the tenant. Alquist-Priolo Act. This is another California one. There's only one more of these. This requires the disclosure of earthquake fault lines on a map within a quarter mile on either side. So this one, I think, is a pretty easy one to remember. When you see Alquist, notice the QU, so you know that's talking about earthquakes, QU. So the other answers are probably other natural disasters like tornadoes or hurricanes or something like that, but just think Alquist, earthquake. Escheat. This is the reverting of property to the state when the deceased has no will or heirs. So escheat, just see the word cheat and think the government cheats into getting free property. Testate is dying with a will. So I remember this one with testate is no contest on who gets what, because the will provide direction. And then intestate is dying without a will. So intestate, you'll be in contest to determine who gets what, because there is no will. So that means you're going to probate court to figure it out. RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. So this protects consumers by providing transparency to the cost of settlement services, aka closing. It also prohibits a person from giving or accepting anything of value for referrals of business. So when I see RESPA, I see RE and I think RE for referrals. TILA is the Truth in Lending Act, or Regulation Z. This is a law promoting the informed use of consumer credit. It also requires borrowers to be informed about the costs of borrowing, which means loans. So when I see TILA, if you jumble those words around, you'll also see tail, or just note the Z, so you can think of the tail end or the end of the alphabet. And then I remember it all comes to an end if you don't have a loan, usually, right? So that's how I remember TILA. It's about the loans and disclosure on the cost of borrowing. Tax due and delinquent dates. This is the last one for California. And this was on my test also, so very important. The first installment is due November 1st and delinquent after December 10th. And the second installment is due February 1st and delinquent on April 10th. So the way you can remember this is no dang fooling around. So the first letter of each of those words, ND, that's for November, then delinquent on December, and then FA, due in February, delinquent in April. Accretion. This is an increase or addition of land due to the accumulation of soil. So when I see accretion, ACC, I think addition, ADD. Avulsion. This is the sudden removal of soil or land by an act of nature. So I simply just think of avulsion or explosion. So that's a sudden event, right? An explosion. So avulsion, explosion. And then we have chain of title. This is the history of a property's ownership or a timeline of the property transfer. So in the word chain, there's an H. H is for history. And the last one is the abstract of title. And that's a summary of all recorded documents and encumbrances affecting title to a property. So again, we see the word abstract, there's an S. S is for summary. So I really hope some of those jog your memory when you see them on the exam. If you thought that was helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments which ones you'll remember for the future, or if you have other tricks that you use. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.